Welcome to the Soflo Business Corner. My name is Tom Hibbert. I want to welcome all business owners to come onto the show and share and grow their business. So let's get on with the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Tom Hibbert, and I am the host of the Soflo Business Corner. What is going on, guys? It is a fantastic Tuesday. We had an unbelievable set of networking events yesterday. We were at the Olive Garden. We were at the Corner Porch. We were just helping people grow their business, which is something that Soflo is all about. If you want to go ahead and join the conversation today, the phone number is 1-888-565-1470. That's 1-888-565-1470. You can always catch it, and we are on 95.3 FM, 1470 AM, and you can always catch us on Facebook at Soflo Mixers, facebook.com/SOFLOMIXER, and we are off today. I am so excited today. We have Dr. Sam here, and we're going to be talking a little bit about cyberbullying and some really cool stuff. How you doing today, Sam?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here and to have this experience working with you and the community and educating the entire community on the importance of mental health.
I love the energy that you always that I've literally met you 3 times, and each time like I've walked away happy. I'm just letting you know. That's just what happens.
Well, the energy that you guys have is contagious, and the same thing, I feel the same way about you guys. The sentiment is absolutely mutual.
Well, we went ahead and we had we met at our event last Thursday. Was it last week Thursday now?
Absolutely.
It was last Thursday. We had like 85 people come out to our networking event. We were at the Holiday Inn. I told you guys it was going to be a good event. You guys, the ones that didn't show up, I guess you didn't believe me. That's your fault, not mine. But we ran a little competition as we've been doing this last month to promote the radio show and promote what we got going on. And Sam went ahead and won the free spot here with us today. It's absolutely exciting. I'm excited about it. I know she is.
I'm very excited. I'm excited to be here.
So why don't we go ahead and just jump into what you do? So let me know, what do you do?
So I am a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, which means I prescribe medications and I do therapy with children, adolescents, and adults. And I work with everything from anxiety and depression to panic disorders to mood disorders to bipolar disorder, and deal with things as simple as, bullying and stress related to schoolwork to things as traumatic as, divorce or abuse can be. And I really just like improving and helping the lives of children, adolescents, and adults in our community.
Well, let's jump into the subject right off the bat. The biggest thing that I've seen in general is people being in a depression mode. Depression is something that I've seen not just with myself, but family members and everything else. And my experience is it can become very debilitating. Can you explain a little bit about what depression can do to somebody?
Absolutely. So I think the key here is to notice that depression in children and adolescents looks somewhat very different than the depression that we see in our adult patients. So whereas an adult can articulate that they're feeling sad and they're feeling depressed, they may have difficulties with sleep, not wanting to do things they used to do, poor energy and concentration. It may just be withdrawn and laying in bed, and actually articulating that they're depressed. Children and adolescents don't usually articulate that they're depressed. Rather, they may become irritable, and irritability manifests as depression in our children and adolescent population. So parents need to be very mindful of when they see a child irritable and angry, as opposed to saying that they're actually depressed and withdrawn, because it can actually mean the same thing in a child as it does in an adult when it looks like irritability.
But why doesn't it manifest in the same way?
Children and adolescents may not have the ability to articulate their emotions in the same ways that adults can. And they also don't have coping skills that are effective to deal with depression and anxiety. So whereas an adult may try to go through a list of things to calm themselves down, children haven't developed the ability to regulate their emotions in the same ways that adults have. So therefore, they get angry, they get irritable sometimes, as opposed to just getting depressed. The other thing that children can do that's different is they just completely stop doing things that they used to be interested in. For example, let's say your child, let's say you have a teenager, and your teenager all of a sudden is not wanting to play sports anymore if they were a basketball player, or isn't wanting to do art that they used to want to do. Those are signs that a child may be depressed. So that's a little bit different sometimes than an adult.
And what and are the trigger points that triggers the depression? Is it different in the younger generation than it is in adults?
It can be definitely different in the older generation versus the younger generation. So we're all very familiar that that the young population, the young generation, children and adolescents are very much engaged on social media, whereas the older generation would be very into Facebook and things like that. Those aren't necessarily the most common applications and social media outlets that our children and adolescents use. Snapchat, Instagram, Kik, those kinds of apps are more typical for children and adolescents. So therefore, they actually have their social circle completely sometimes dependent on their social media networks as well. And triggers on social media that you may not be aware of, parents, actually can be a trigger for depression, anxiety, and poor mental state for our youth.
And is there stuff? I just want to touch one more question on the depression side of it. Is there something that people can be aware of, like as a parent? Like I'm luckily I have a kid that's 4. I have a kid that's 2. I'm not in that stage of life yet. Thank God.
Absolutely.
But is for those parents that are, is there stuff that they can, because obviously taking away the social media isn't an option.
Yes.
So is there things that parents can do to kind of help to either stop those trigger points from happening, or is there something that parents can do to kind of maneuver around that?
Absolutely. So I encourage all parents to be very, very in tune with the applications that their children and adolescents are using. There are apps that hide other apps in our phones. So what may look like a calculator, for example, may actually hide other social media applications that adolescents may be on that we need to be mindful of, because they can be hidden and they may not be safe applications. Lots of times these applications have communication with adolescents with complete strangers, which can be dangerous. So we want to be mindful of that. Additionally, parents need to be engaged with speaking with the schools, speaking with the mental health counselors, speaking with their children directly, and even getting in touch with their children's friends sometimes if they are worried about their child, to see what's going on, and other children's parents. We often forget that it really does take a community to raise a child, and people who are in the community can be really helpful in educating you on what's going on in your child's life outside of your house and outside of the school.
Is there, and I leave this question from this. When growing up, and even as I was starting to build my family, my dad always said, you need to have dinner every night with your family. You need to sit there and talk to them and everything else, and you need to be at home and create that dinner every single night. Is there some benefit in doing that kind of thing, or something along those lines? So
absolutely, there's benefit in being home with your children. The key for children and adolescents, they may not say they like it, but structure is critical. So that means that having a routine, a regular routine that the children and the adolescents can expect on a daily basis, helps them get through the day and helps them stay well. So moving multiple places, not knowing where you're going to be staying each night, having structure, even in the context of divorced parents, in terms of which parent's house they're going to sleep at, is very helpful for regulating their emotions and keeping them well. And I encourage parents to maintain as much structure as possible in their children's lives to keep them well and to keep communication open. In answer to your question about, having family dinners, I encourage parents to have family dinners. If that is not feasible, if dad's working late and mom's also working late, in today's society, most parents are both working and are employed. If it's not feasible to have dinner every night, it doesn't need to be dinner when you talk to your children and adolescents. It can be before bed. It can be first thing in the morning. It can be literally on the way to school or on the way home from school. And don't always assume that the dinner table needs to be the opportunity for these deep conversations. Actually, when it's in the car, sometimes that can be very as effective or even more effective.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're talking with Dr. Sam. We're going to take a quick break, real quick, and we'll be right back right after this.
please welcome a new sponsor to the show. It's AMP2 TV, the first and only internet network that's truly plugged in. When you're looking for a full-service internet television production company, discover AMP2 TV, a full-service production company that can provide all streaming videos in studio or remotely. They offer web page development, and they use all the latest platforms to help make your business selling points more powerful. They can do remotes and live streaming, as well as tape productions. Let AMP2 TV handle all of your television production needs. Choose from a variety of creative TV and radio packages and see why AMP2 TV works with many major companies, including Comcast, Bravo, and Fox 29, as well as individuals and businesses of all types and sizes. To see samples of their work or to find out more, visit their website at amp2.tv. That's AMP2.tv. Or call them at 1-866-224-5422. That's 866-224-5422.
Welcome back to the Soflo Business Corner. If you want to join the show, call 1-888-565-1470. We want to hear from you. Once again, that number is 1-888-565-1470. Now let's get back to the show. Welcome back. My name is Tom Hibbert, and I am the host of the Soflo Business Corner. We are here talking with Dr. Sam. We're having a great conversation well, it's never a great conversation about depression, but she knows her stuff, and she has some really good things to talk about. If you want to talk to Dr. Sam, talk about maybe stuff that's happened with your kids, you can give us a call, 1-888-565-1470, 1-888-565-1470. As always, you can catch us on Facebook. Her information is going to be posted all over the screens, all over the comments above, as well as she's going to comment her information below as well. So there's many ways to get to know her, and we're talking about the child adolescence. We're talking about depression that they go through, and there's something that you've been doing, focusing a lot recently on, especially now that the school year is coming. So you're trying to bring awareness to cyberbullying. Mm-hmm. Can you really be, as a person, can you really be affected by cyberbullying? Let me ask you that question.
Absolutely. And I think there's this, miscommunication that just children are victims of cyberbullying. Children and adults are victims of cyberbullying, and cyberbullying manifests in different ways. There's really no good definition of, I would say, cyberbullying, except for how the individual and the person interprets it. So social media can be a great tool, and it could also be very dangerous and can affect a child's, adolescent's, and even an adult's self-esteem. Something as simple as not getting enough likes on Facebook, mm-hmm. or posting something and having no one comment could be, indirectly a sense of injury and a sense of hurt and abandonment when somebody doesn't comment on your social media platform. And even as a...
Hold on. I'm sorry.
No,
I need to know what's called. So a form of cyberbullying is when people don't comment or...
No. I wouldn't say that's cyberbullying.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that at all. I wouldn't say it's cyberbullying. What I'd say is that, we need to be mindful of how children and adolescents use social media and how they interpret it. So commonly...
So they're taking that to heart when things don't happen the way they expect?
Of course they take that to heart. And sometimes they post a picture on Instagram and it gets shared, or maybe it's an inappropriate picture that they didn't want the whole world to see, or on Snapchat. And then it goes and gets filtered, or maybe there's, things that were in that picture that may have been, nudity or things like that, and it gets disseminated. And it can be very, very dangerous, and really it's a form of bullying when those kinds of things happen to children, adolescents, and even to adults.
How would you recommend to avoid cyberbullying? Because I've never been cyberbullied before, mm-hmm. so I've never experienced it. So explain that to me.
So the first thing is, believe it or not, lots of times the perpetrators of cyberbullying are people that are complete strangers to these children and adolescents. So they don't even have to necessarily know the children and adolescents. So the first thing is obviously not friending or communicating with people who are strangers to you on social media, or even people who you don't know very well at all. The other thing you can do is, parents, you can have access to your children's and adolescents' apps and kind of check in on them and be friends with them online, so you can see who they really are communicating with and who they are talking to. Privacy settings are critical. If the privacy settings are for only friends versus friends of friends, it makes a big difference in terms of how the information is disseminated and the number of people that it can reach. The unfortunate thing about bullying versus cyberbullying, bullying is horrible. You think of bullying as physical, sexual abuse, and neglect. You think those forms of bullying. But you don't typically always think of cyberbullying. And in some ways, cyberbullying may be even worse than traditional face-to-face bullying in the sense that the bullying is recurrent. So every time a person visits the site where they were bullied, they get re-traumatized over and over and over again. Whereas if they were bullied in person, the event happens and then it's over. With cyberbullying, every time they go on, they get re-traumatized.
And I want to go back to something you said before about parents monitoring their stuff and everything else.
Yeah.
How do parents avoid this conversation, or how do they manage this conversation where they're like, Mom, it's not cool to have you with this and that and the other thing, because that's going to happen, obviously. Or, Mom, get out of my business, because as you reach those ages, obviously, I'm not looking forward to them.
Of course.
But so how do you manage that kind of thing? Because obviously you can put your foot down, but then they'll try and circumvent you.
Of course. So first and foremost, you need to tell your kids that their safety is the most important thing, and whether they're being bullied or cyberbullied, their safety is the most important criteria that you need to monitor. And ultimately, your job as a parent is to provide food, shelter, and nutrition and safety for your children, and clothing for your children. If you're not providing them in a safe environment, then there's a disconnect there. So even though they may get aggravated and they may get upset, you ultimately have control of whether they're being safe online or not being safe online to the best of your ability, and part of that means keeping an eye on it. If they do get upset, which will likely happen if you want to monitor their social media use, explain to them and be candid with them why you want to be more in touch with who they're communicating with. Oftentimes, if it gets really, really bad, if the bullying gets out of control, people forget that there were days without the internet, and that there are ways to stop the internet on an adolescent's phone. So if you disconnect the internet, if your child is acutely suicidal, if they want to kill themselves because the cyberbullying is so horrible, then you may need to disconnect their internet for a period of time in order to keep them safe and to keep them well. And if you think that they are acutely suicidal, obviously you need to call 911 or report to your nearest emergency room immediately.
And that's actually a legitimate fear. That is something that I mean, how many times do parents say, when we hear these stories, parents say, "Oh, I had no idea. I had no idea." Is some of that the parents not paying attention, or is it possible for the kids to really just avoid those kinds of conversations to raise the red flags?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Children, adolescents won't necessarily bring up these conversations to you, and therefore it's imperative that parents take the initiative and they speak with their children about what's going on at school, online, and at home. And sometimes as adults, we forget that we just need to be open and honest. Adolescents and even young children know when we're not being truthful with them. If you've had an experience, share that experience with your adolescent, share that experience with your child, and be frank and open with them, and that gives them an opportunity and a door to be open with you. Don't try and disguise your true emotions with them, because they know what you're thinking.
Yeah. And they understand that when they get to a certain age, they realize, oh, well, Mom wasn't perfect when she was my age, and Dad had a past, that kind of thing. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard as a parent to lie in that sense, because they see right through you.
They 100% see right through you. And I always say that you're an example for your child. If your child knows you're lying to them, they are going to be much more willing to lie to you if they know if you're not being truthful with them. So if you're setting an example for them and you're lying to them, then don't be surprised that they're going to lie back with you, because that's the example you're laying out for them.
You're teaching them to lie.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're teaching. Yeah, but it's somewhere in there. Yeah, you're definitely setting an example that lying is okay, and ultimately, honesty and openness is the most important thing to develop trust with your children, adolescents, and having them grow and be strong, independent people. And you want them to be honest and open.
So obviously you work with people with depression, people with cyberbullying. The school year just started.
Yes.
What are some things that parents can take and parents can do and put themselves in the right position to be there for the kids? And I understand that parents nowadays, both parents have a job, both have two jobs, that kind of thing. So being there physically isn't there a lot of times. What are some things that parents can do to get around that, the busy schedule?
Absolutely. So that's one of the great things about technology is that you can literally contact your child or adolescent whenever you need to through text or through phone calls or whatever, or even, FaceTime if necessary. If children are living in two different households, which is very common now with divorce, I do encourage parents to actually physically FaceTime their child in order to connect with them, because there's a different level of humanness and openness with your children when they do see you face to face, and make them they'll be more likely to communicate with you if they physically see you. You also get a better feel for your kid when you see them face to face than through the telephone. So I do encourage that as well. In terms of parents and prioritizing school, work, and those kinds of things, that's where you need to look inside yourself and say, yes, work is important. Yes, school is important. Yes, my kids are important. And you and your significant other, or if you don't have a significant other in the picture, you need to decide where those priorities are. And sometimes speaking with the kids and finding out what's most important to them, for you to be at, which softball game is most important for you to be at, is helpful, because then they feel like you really care about what they want in terms of what they need and how you can make that happen. So we can't be everywhere. We live life, we have jobs, we need to make the bills. We can't be everywhere. And at the same time, we need to be in certain places for our kids. Ask them what's most important to them. Stay on top of it.
Well, I mean, based off of everything you said, let me kind of make sure I understand this, because I'm a parent and I'm not there yet, but I'm going to be. So I want to make sure I'm learning about this beforehand, not afterwards. So the way I understand it is, and this is the way that I've always looked at parenting, even at the tiny ages, at 2, 3, 4 years old, which is where my kids are now. A lot of times, what I was taught growing up from my parents are children should be seen and not heard, and they should be and I've learned that you can really truly understand, like, actually control, not control their behavior, but you can help them have better behavior just by treating them like a regular person, trying to explain everything that's going on, but not, like, understand that they won't get everything, and really try to treat them as not as an adult, but try to treat them as a human being that you would a random stranger, and instead of being a dictator of this and do that. Because if in my experience with my son that's 4 now, I was kind of like that in the beginning with him, and he was completely shut off to me. And when he started talking, he would only talk to my wife. He wouldn't talk to me. And we actually spoke to somebody about that, and they said it was probably because of he was afraid to talk. He was afraid because of I was kind of the one that enforced all the punishments, and he took that as if he could say something wrong, all of a sudden now he's in trouble, and he wanted to avoid that. Now fast forward 10 years from now, 11 years, 12 years from now. And now he's in his teenage years and everything else. Does the same concept still apply in that regard? And then, especially with a working parent, maybe it's a single parent that's working 2 jobs. That same concept still applies, right?
So there's a fine line between being authoritative and dictator-like, so to speak, and allowing your child to find their own identity. And I find that nowadays, at any age, parents want their children to be, exceeding in X, Y, and Z. They want them to be playing X, Y, and Z sport. But let your child find themselves. And I think that what you're saying is once you stopped, trying to enforce certain rules on your child and you let him find himself, he actually found you. And when he finds himself, when they start opening up to feeling like they can be their true selves in front of their parents, that's when the conversation, the communication just continues to develop and grow. So you want to provide structure without providing a dictator kind of setting, a dictator-like kind of environment for your child.
How do parents know when they've crossed the line on that, though? Because I'll be honest with you, my biggest thing was I didn't realize I was as strong on him as, and let's be clear, it's just so that I don't get any emails or anything else. I don't hit my kids. I don't do anything like that. He goes in the corner. My voice projects very loudly. I can yell. So that's that. I'd be very clear on that. But I didn't realize that even like the tone of my voice mattered.
Absolutely.
Like just the words I use matter.
Yeah.
So how do you realize, as because it literally took for somebody to point out to me that wasn't my wife, because my wife is always wrong and I'm always right, and she thinks the same thing.
Yeah.
But how do you realize that? How do you come to that conclusion?
So I tell all my parents, there is no college degree in parenting. Nobody was ever told that this is how you become a parent and you follow this, and then you get an A+.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist. So the first the first part of all of this is stop being so hard on yourself. You know, you're looking back and you're saying, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have done this. You're learning with him just as he's learning with you.
Absolutely.
And taking a step back and saying, you know, he is responding to this, he's not responding to that, and kind of experimenting with your own child to see what works best for his or her developmental style is what's critical. And catching yourself and using different techniques, trying different, colors, so to speak, in the room, right? Mm-hmm. Trying different ways about going about things is key. And the number one most important thing is that once you stop being so hard on yourself, you're going to stop being so hard on your kid. And what you're saying here is that you are really hard on yourself. You're hard on yourself. He needs to be this way. He needs to be this way. He needs to be this way. And the truth of the matter is you were being hard on yourself, and then you were just taking part of that, and being hard on him.
Out on him. Yeah. And let me ask you this, because we only have a couple minutes, but how does and if you have a second kid, is it sometimes, is raising that kid different than like the same rules won't apply on the first one as it does the second one? No,
absolutely not. Every child is unique, different, and special, and you need to take each child with their own developmental style and they all have different temperaments, and sensing that and reading that and working with your significant other and yourself to make sure that they are the most you are adapting to their own temperament is the most effective way.
Perfect. How can people get a hold of you?
You can reach our office at 561-510-9150. That's 561-510-9150. Again, my name is Dr. Samantha Saltz, Dr. Sam I go by.
Dr. Sam.
And we look forward to seeing you in the office.
Perfect. Guys, this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Dr. Sam.
Thank you so much. Love being here.
We are going to be having our Bridal Expo this Sunday. We're giving away a free wedding. We're giving away a free honeymoon. Make sure you check us out, facebook.com/Soflo Mixers, SOFLO MIXER. And we're going to be back here again next week. Guys, have a good one. See you then. My name's Tom Hibbert. I want to thank you for joining the show today. Make sure to join us next week, where we're going to help you share and grow your business.